Well, you wouldn't know it from the snow outside, but spring is here in Montana, and this might be the biggest batch of new gear I've tried in years. Some of it could seriously improve my backpacking and packrafting system, and some of it might turn out to be a mistake. Today, I'll walk you through everything that I'm testing this season, from a brand new tent design to a powerful new paddle and a fleece that could change how I layer in cold weather. Hey guys, I'm Dan from ShastaBubba Adventures, and I've got a really long list, so let's get started. First up is the X-Dome 1 Plus from Durston Gear, which is one of the most interesting new tent designs in years. Conventional wisdom used to be that you can have a freestanding tent or an ultralight tent, but you can't have both. The X-Dome seeks to bridge that gap. It has a wonderfully thought out floor design, which is narrow at the feet but wide at the head, so I can lay out my gear next to me for easy access at night, and there is still the highly useful vestibule area where I can leave my pack and shoes. Of course, this versatility does come with a weight penalty. The X-Dome tops out a bit over 36 ounces. That means that for me personally, I'll likely be sticking with the X-Mid Pro for most trips. However, the X-Dome might become my favorite for winter trips, where the freestanding style is just so much easier to set up than a trekking pole tent that depends on placing stakes in frozen ground or burying in packed snow. Another advantage is that the X-Dome is a complete double wall shelter versus the hybrid design of the X-Mid Pro tents. Full disclosure, I didn't actually buy this tent or have it given to me. My hiking buddy Eric bought it and is loaning it to me so I can make a comparison with the X-Mid 1, the standard version, which I do own. So watch for that video later in the year. As you can see, I already had it out on one winter trip and it performed very well. And it was even about 5 degrees warmer inside the shelter than out. Moving on, unless otherwise noted, the rest of the gear was all purchased by me at full cost. Also, as always, there will be links to this stuff in the description. Since I've been packrafting for many years now, I was curious to try out a higher end paddle, so I invested in the Werner Powerhouse, and I'm really glad I did. I got this paddle just after last year's new gear video, so I was able to use it all summer, and it really made a difference in the feeling of control and having a more powerful stroke. I got the 4-piece with a straight shaft, so it will pack down nicely when stowed, and I can honestly say that together with my new alpaca raft, my confidence in Whitewater has increased by double. So much so that I finally got up the courage to float the big Whitewater section of the middle fork of the Flathead where all the commercial companies go. And I survived. The only real question when buying this was whether to go with the Powerhouse or the smaller version called the Sherpa. I was a little intimidated by reading reports that the larger blade of the Powerhouse meant that you could end the day with very tired arms. Now, I'm a fairly burly guy, but my self-image is a 98-pound weakling. Well, I overcame the self-doubt and haven't had any troubles managing the Powerhouse. A related upgrade, I decided to invest in an actual Whitewater helmet, and I got the rocker from Sweet Protection. For years, I've just been using a bike helmet, and people have been very kind not to ridicule that choice in the comments. But as my confidence grows, I'm more likely to push into Class 3 rapids. I believe it's worth the money and the weight penalty to make this shift. The rocker is highly rated and comes in at 20 ounces, so it doesn't feel like a bowling ball to carry. I've learned that a bike helmet is actually designed to protect from just one major hit, and that typically comes in the front or the top of the head. A true Whitewater dome provides protection all around, and in rafting, the hits are more likely to be repeated shots to the temples instead. The rocker is a nice snug fit, so it won't get ripped loose in a current, and I like that the ear flaps are removable. That's important because one of the downsides is it can get a little warm on a hot sunny day, which is also where the visor helps out. I will still probably take the bike helmet on packrafting trips that don't involve anything over, Class 2, because helmet weight matters, but durability and protection matter more when you're smashing into rocks. Longtime viewers of the channel will know that I'm a fan of the Humble Fleece pullover. In fact, I made a whole video explaining the many benefits of it. So naturally, I perked up my ears at all the buzz over the new Alpha Direct fleece everywhere. People are touting its warmth to weight ratio as better than traditional 100 weight fleece, and it's also lighter and more packable. The biggest downside is that Alpha is a loose weave construction, which makes it prone to snags, plus it functions best as activewear, so it's not as warm when just sitting around camp. The durability concern is what prompted me to go a different direction and get the Octa fleece from Zpacks instead. It's got the same level of warmth to weight, but greater durability, which is important since I don't want to really baby my gear. I think the Alpha is best if you want the absolute lightest high output layer. Octa is better if you want one fleece that can do almost everything. But I do want to say that traditional fleece still is best if you want durability and warmth around camp, not to mention being by far the cheapest option. I especially like the Zpacks pullover because of the hoodie for extra warmth and the kangaroo pocket, both of which make it more functional in camp and for sleeping in. I took it on a recent winter trip and it was perfect for hiking in with a wind shirt, and you're definitely going to want to wear a wind shirt because the pitiful wind resistance is the second biggest downside of both Octa and Alpha fleece. One of the most common situations where I use my old fleece pullover is as an insulating layer when packrafting because it stays warm when wet and doesn't stretch out. I'm thinking I will still do that because I'm afraid the Octa fleece is still a loose enough weave to stretch out. But I'll give it a try and let you know how it works for packrafting. Speaking of which, I also decided to upgrade my rain shell specifically for that use. You see, rather than carry a heavy splash jacket, I use the fleece pullover with my rain shell for packrafting. And although I still love my Visp shell for overall backpacking, it's expensive, a bit fragile, and most of all, you can't seem to buy them anymore. So it's become precious as well. I wanted something that would work well, robust enough to wear on the Whitewater, but not too heavy and not cost a fortune. Sounds like the Patagonia Torrentshell. It's a solid performer with a long history, weighs just 15 ounces in a large, and is stout enough to take some hard knocks. Plus, I was able to score it on a year-end sale, so it only cost around $120. Haven't had a chance to raft in it yet, but I've been wearing it to work on rainy days, and I really like it. The hood sits well, and it's got a real firm brim, so it's provided great wind and rain protection. The only nitpick is that the zipper flap is poorly designed. There's a double flap, which sounds like a good thing, but the left side sits right over the zipper, making it prone to catching, and it's hard to see the end when starting the zipper. It does have pit zips and hand warmer pockets, so overall, I'm happy with it for now. Next up is one of the few items that was gifted to me this year. I've long been frustrated that my InReach Explorer, stupidly, doesn't keep track of the cumulative elevation gain and loss over the day. One of the key details I want to know. So about a year ago, I bought on eBay a used Suunto watch, my first foray into the wide world of sports/smart watches. About the time I was getting used to that, Suunto reached out and offered to donate a watch for review, so I got the all-new Suunto 9 Peak Pro. And I'm really liking it, although it is a bit like using a bazooka to kill a mosquito. There is so much functionality that I don't know yet in this watch, but it's working great so far for the primary purpose of tracking elevation gain and loss, as well as the overall mileage for the day. Now, of course, the Explorer does track mileage, but I don't like that it clears every time you turn it off. So I appreciate that the Peak Pro keeps a log of each workout, and I don't have to worry that I'll forget to check before shutting it down. In addition to the accurate GPS, the Peak Pro also is light with a relatively small face, which is important for a non-watch wearer like me. It's durable with a sapphire glass, so gear abuse proof compared to typical lifestyle watches. And best of all, it's got a battery life of 40 hours in best GPS mode, so I don't have to worry about charging it on most trips. It's not really useful for mapping, so it won't be replacing my InReach. And my biggest nit is that when it's in active tracking mode, the time disappears, which means I'm still carrying my clip-on watch. Kind of silly, and maybe that's user error, so I'll keep playing with it and try to figure out more of the bells and whistles. And thanks Suunto for the cool new gadget. One of my favorites this year, and this might end up winning Best Gear of the Year, is the Ombraz Armless sunglasses. These seemed a little gimmicky at the start, but once I got used to using the adjustment feature on the strap, they have quickly become a joy to use. What drew me to them in the first place was that they would sit flat in the hip belt pocket of my pack, and the curvature is perfect for that. But what I quickly appreciated is the high quality Zeiss lenses. They're UV and glare reducing, scratch resistant, smudge resistant, and hydrophobic, which together with the strap keeping them firmly in place, make them ideal for packrafting, not to mention fishing and any type of boating really. The only time I ever took a swim was on a guided raft trip, and doing so meant losing my cap and sunglasses. After suffering with no eye protection from the sun for the next 2 days, knowing that these sunglasses will always stay put means a lot to me personally. With no arms, they are less likely to break, and the curve is just right so I can wear them backpacking when the sun is behind me without having reflection in my eyes. I even love the attention to detail that they sewed a microfiber cloth into the soft case. Downsides are that they are a little expensive, but not crazy spendy. At $160, they're about what you would expect for this level of quality. And since they are far less likely to be lost or broken, I'm thinking they will last a long time. It did take a little getting used to them in the beginning. I kept thinking they were leaning too far forward at first, and I kept having to reset them until I figured out the problem was that I thought the strap should be just set once and left alone, but it works better to make micro adjustments to the strap, and now they fit great and ride comfortably. At 1.5 ounces with the case, they're awesome from an ultralight perspective too. I guess another downside is they generally take 2 hands to put on and take off, so they're really more of a high performance tool for active sports and less convenient for everyday use. Last point, they fit better inside either a helmet or a hoodie than sunglasses with arms. By the way, let me know if you have questions about all this gear. I'm happy to respond in the comments, and I also really enjoy hearing what new gear you're excited to try out this year. Most of the time when I'm hiking along, my hands get pretty warm from the effort of backpacking. I might start out the day wearing fleece gloves, but they typically come off within the first half hour or so, and I'm fine generally even hiking in winter without gloves. The one exception to that is hiking in the rain, especially if there's a bit of wind to go with it. My fleece gloves aren't very effective in that situation, even though they are supposed to stay warm when wet. Fleece generally doesn't have great wind resistance, and that makes the hands really cold. That's why I got this pair of ultralight overmitts from Itawa Outfitters. They're made with a 2-ply water-resistant breathable upper and a different material on the palm that's not water-resistant. There's a solid wrist strap to keep the weather out, and they weigh in right about 1 ounce. Now I've had these on a couple of trips, and they work pretty well for hiking in the rain, but were of no use at all when I was butt scooching across an icy log, which really isn't what they were designed for. I think they will serve their purpose, but I did want to mention another option, which is the ProVent rain mitts from Mountain Laurel Designs. Their rain mitts are actually waterproof, whereas the Itawa overmitts are only water resistant. Same weight, but about $10 more, and the cinch on the MLD mitts looks a bit less ideal than the wrist straps on the Itawa mitts, but it might be a better overall choice given the waterproofness. The only other item gifted to me in this list is a set of stuffed sacks from Hilltop Packs. Now this was great timing because my old DCF bags were pretty worn out, so I was just about to invest in new ones when Ben from Hilltop Packs reached out, and I got 3 new stuffed sacks: a day food bag, a bag for my clothes, and a large bag for my quilt, which they call the Jumbo Plus. These are made from Challenge D50T, which is one of the newer waterproof materials like DCF, and they're seam sealed. But what's really cool is the abrasion resistant outer layer that just feels bulletproof next to my old DCF bags. So I'm really expecting these awesome bags to last a lot of trail miles. Incidentally, you might have heard me say before that I store my quilt in the bottom of the pack inside a DCF dry bag just for extra security. Well, one downside of that method is that the bag does take on air after it's been compressed, but you can't push that air back out. Don't ask me to explain the physics because I don't get it either. But the result is that the dry bag takes up more space in the pack than it should. That's why I'm thinking that this jumbo plus size with the drawstring closure will be a good compromise because it's still waterproof, but this style closure will allow me to squeeze the air out after it's loaded in the pack. And the opening will still set high enough to be out of any few drops of water that might get inside my Kakwa pack. I'll let you know how that turns out in practice, and thanks so much to the folks from Hilltop Packs. One last item, just for fun, I got the Ultralight camp shoes from Zpacks. Now, I've always insisted that since I hike in trail runners, any type of comfy camp shoes is redundant, so why get these? Well, there's one specific situational problem these are meant to solve, and that's getting up in the middle of the night and having to go outside to answer the call of nature. I've tried the idea of keeping a pee bottle, but that didn't really work for me because I was too nervous about making a mess in the tent. Since I wear socks at night that are dedicated just for sleeping, and since I walk through streams in my trail runners, that means I have to slip off the socks, put on cold, wet shoes over bare feet, and sneak outside. Then when I return, I have to dry off and clean my feet before putting the socks back on, and by then I'm wide awake. These 2-ounce slippers are quick to slide on over sleep socks, and the sole is just thick enough to provide protection from rocks and sticks, not to mention keeping my sleep socks clean. That was the theory, but I have to say these so far have worked out better than expected, and I was able to use them as actual camp shoes on my late fall trip to Granite Lake. The slippers are stretchy enough to fit over both socks and down booties, and were quite comfortable while sipping on coffee that cold morning. So I'm pretty impressed with their general usefulness and security on the feet, which was not at all expected, but a great bonus. Okay guys, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Thanks a million for subscribing. It really means a lot to me. And I'll see you next time. Take care. Hey guys. Hi guys. Might get inside my Kakwa pack. Wow, that's hard to say. Next. I think I'm going to start all over. Wrong again. I'm shouting. I'm using my preacher voice. Going to get it this time.